Welcome to the Fallon Forum. Despite all the sadness in the world, the trauma that faces so many people in so many parts of the world on a daily basis, despite all the heartaches and headaches in our own lives and our own communities, I am one happy camper today. Again, we have to go joyfully amidst the distress and stress, and I'm doing that today. It is a beautiful day here in central Iowa, specifically in Des Moines, the cultural and culinary crossroads of America. We're going to be shortly talking with Robert Naiman from one of the most beautiful parts of our state, Northeast Iowa, and the beauty of Northeast Iowa and some of the businesses and agricultural efforts that thrive there are in danger because of something called frac sand mining. We're going to get an update on that. I also want to talk about the polling relevant to Edward Snowden, the whistleblower on the U.S. surveillance program. We're going to talk about that. I am most happy and most excited about the fact that this is the first in a weekly series. And I don't even know how long this series might go. It could go a long time. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to education. The angle we're looking at here is the innovative stuff happening that's not front and center in the news all the time. It's not front and center in legislative debates. I'm calling it a different beat on education. And I tell you, there was an awful lot of brainstorming that went into a different beat on education, coming up with the right name. This is about marching to a different drummer, if you will, a different beat. I know there's a journalistic pun there as well. I love puns. It's a different beat on how we approach educating our children through Montessori, through Waldorf, through homeschooling, through all the other innovative stuff happening. And today, the first beat we'll look at is what's going on at Coles Elementary School in the Des Moines School District. And joining us for that conversation will be a parent of Coles students, Sherry Hardina, and also a teacher and one of the founders of the Coles program, and that would be Mary Jean Annexstad. We'll talk with them in the second half of today's program. But first, kicking it off, joining us from Northeast Iowa, and again, very grateful that you were able to take the time to be a part of this conversation, Robert Naiman. Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, great. Thanks to be on the show, Ed. Thank you.
Yeah, I've long admired the work that you and others in Alameda County are doing to try to address the frac sand mining issue, and you seem to be making some headway continuously.
Yes, we were granted our moratorium back in February, and we are slowly making progress. But last night, there was a planning and zoning hearing on a proposed rail spur just down the road from my house.
A rail spur that would connect some of the mining operations with the larger railroad system?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. From around the area, not directly from Iowa, but mainly southeast Minnesota would be receiving this frac sand. But they proposed to rezone this industrial, and our planning and zoning voted last night 5-0 to not recommend that rezoning.
That's good. Now, is that recommendation binding, or is it merely a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, or does it actually have the weight of law?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's going to eventually arrive back at our Board of Supervisors' desk, and they will ultimately have the decision.
Okay, so they take that recommendation under consideration, but the point is, when your Planning and Zoning Commission rules unanimously in a certain direction, the County Board of Supervisors tend to take that seriously.
We're hoping so.
Well, okay, that's good. You want to be cautious,
yeah.
Now, when is that meeting set to occur?
Well, obviously, they just ruled last night, the P&Z, so it will eventually, I'm assuming this following Monday, the 24th, it will arrive back on their desk, and then the Board of Supervisors from there will have to set a hearing date and go from there. So I'm not exactly for sure what the dates of those will be.
Okay, so despite the moratorium, some of the some of the groups interested in expanding the frac sand mining industry are continuing to push for, in this case, zoning changes that would facilitate their expansion.
Well, and basically that came from an environmental assessment worksheet out of Fillmore County, Minnesota, stating that they had planned on doing 120 round trips, truck trips a day to this rail spur. And so they are moving forward, or tried to move forward with a proposal to have that rezoned industrial.
Okay. And for the sake of my audience members that may not be up to speed on this, and again, in Central Iowa, there's not a lot of conversation about this, but we've talked about it quite a few times on this program. Still, there's folks who may need a little primer. Frac sand mining, what is it, first of all? And then after we get a sense of what it is, you can tell me why people are so up in arms against it. But first of all, what is it?
Well, from our experiences and contacts in Wisconsin, and from what we've seen firsthand, it's basically mountaintop removal. They remove the layers, the top layers, the trees. They basically bulldoze down until they get to the sand layers that they're looking for.
Okay.
And then from there, they mine out those layers using blasting techniques, digging, and then they transport it to be washed and then ultimately sent to where they are fracking.
Now, you don't have what we call mountains in Northeast Iowa, but it is one part of the state that is hillier. And I assume we're talking about some of the bluffs along the Mississippi, along the upper Iowa River, maybe along the Turkey as well, places where they would have to remove most of the land structure in order to get down to the sand. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And I use the term mountaintop removal because that's essentially what it looks like. And we do have the hills and bluffs up here in the driftless region. And these are some of the oldest hills in the United States. Yeah. And we feel that it's important to protect them from this sort of damage.
Yeah. And again, I've been to Allamakee County many times. It is a beautiful part of the state. Again, this is not just an issue in Allamakee, but in Winneshiek, probably in Clayton County, maybe in Dubuque or Fayette as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Allamakee County per capita brings in more tourism dollars than any other county in the state of Iowa.
Really?
So we have the hunting, the fishing, the trout streams. We really, really pride ourselves on the tourism up here. And with that, we are holding an event down here at Fish Farm Mounds in Black Hawk Bluff this weekend to promote tourism, which is directly across the road from the proposed railroad spur. It's driftlessdrift.com, and it's going to be a fun hike, bike, paddle in, and promote tourism in this upper Iowa River Valley and the driftless region in northeast Iowa.
And again, the reason that frac sand is being, the term frac, maybe that gives it away. It's for fracking. It's to use in the extraction of natural gas. It's the sand that gets mixed with the water that is shot into the shale to release that gas. I believe I'm describing that at least somewhat correctly from a layman's point of view.
Right. It's mixed with a concoction of chemicals.
Not just water. That's right. It's
not just water. It's a concoction of chemicals, most of them proprietary. We don't know what they are, and mixed in, and you can use 1 million pounds or more of sand per frac. So you're talking about massive amounts of sand.
Wow.
The Jordan, the St. Peter, the Wanawak used this technique.
And this mining, this technique, this hydraulic fracking, as it's called, is a technique that has been refined in recent years and is now being used more pervasively. And thus, it's endangering a lot of. There are a lot of mountaintops in the Appalachians that are actually being destroyed because of this extraction. But the sand, it's interesting how all these things connect. Now, one concern, there are folks who are concerned about climate change, about environmental degradation, about earth, about air quality. But, they look at coal, they look at gas, they look at oil, and they say, well, of those three, gas is the least polluting. And so they think, well, let's move in that direction. Let's facilitate the expansion of natural gas because it's less damaging to the environment, to the air, to the climate than coal and oil. What do you say to that type of perspective, which again is very, very common?
Right. Well, from our research, natural gas, its entire life cycle is not cleaner. You have to look at the extraction of the sand, the transporting, what they're doing to the environment where they're fracking. So in the whole picture, natural gas is not cleaner. It might be cleaner burning at the end use, but the extraction techniques are definitely not cleaner.
Now, regarding the end use, what I have heard is yes, there are less carbon emissions from natural gas burning, but the burning produces a lot more methane, and the methane is even more problematic in terms of the impact on climate change.
Right, and I don't have the statistics directly in front of me, but I have heard that, and it's the methane release also that we're concerned with. But we're also concerned with what is happening at these sites. We hear the same stories on the fracking pads as we do where they're extracting the sand, and it's land degradation.
Right.
It's polluting the air, the water. Property values are decreasing.
Now, Alameda County is not exactly a hotbed of liberalism. It's a county, an area of the state that is fairly conservative, and so you seem to have fairly strong, bipartisan opposition to this in your county. I presume this is not just some tree hugging initiative. This is folks who, again, span the political spectrum.
Right, and I think most of the farmers are conservative, and in this past election, I think they swayed a little bit more Democratic up here. But that being said, I feel that these farmers want to be land stewards, and the citizens of our county want to be land stewards and protect this area for legacies, for these families that have lived here for generations. Yeah. And I feel that oversteps the boundaries of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
As it should. That's always usually the best stuff gets done when people unite around a common concern, regardless of their personal opinions on unrelated issues. So I'm glad to hear that. One more question for you, Robert, before we let you go. Is there a role for state government? This has been a local issue. You've got your county board of supervisors, your planning commission have been weighing in so far on your side, on the people's side. Is there a role for the state government to play in this issue?
I think ultimately it could arrive at the state. I think we are trying to handle it here locally. We feel that we, the people, can stand up and hopefully control what happens in our county. And if it doesn't, we will take it to the state level. And I know they have lobbyists, the oil and gas, but, it's the citizens that need to stand up too and come together and call your representatives.
If you do have to go to the state level at some point, what do you do? Do you talk with Chuck Gipp at the Iowa DNR? Do you try to deal with the governor's office, or is this a legislative issue?
I believe we start locally right here and work through the channels of our representatives that represent us right here, and they can carry forward with promoting or introducing legislation. We really trust and want to work with our representatives from this area.
And who is your state rep and your state senator?
It's Michael Breitbach and Patty Ruff. Are representatives from this area.
Republicans, Democrats?
One Republican and one Democrat.
Okay, well that's kind of nice. You have a hand in both camps there. And so have they been responsive and supportive of your efforts?
Absolutely. I think Patty Ruff has really shown some interest in this, and we had met with Michael Breitbach down in Des Moines and made him aware of what's happening up here. So he's aware of it, and I'm sure they're working together to come up with some solutions.
Good. Well, it's nice when your officials, state or otherwise, are responsive to the public's concern. They say you can't beat City Hall. Oh, I've made a living out of beating City Hall. I wouldn't call it maybe living's the wrong word. I've made a career out of beating City Hall, and you can't do it all the time, but you can certainly win on many occasions, especially when you have the truth on your side, strong talking points, and a good coalition. And it sounds like you put all those together. So I, again, congratulate you on hard work and protecting Iowa's landscape and the businesses and families that depend on it in your area.
Well, we really appreciate being on this program because we don't get a lot of news coverage that expands beyond our county here. So when you carry us and you have people listening across the state, it really helps our cause to really realize what's happening up here.
Well, thank you. I think I'll have to somehow manage a destination vacation to Northeast Iowa this year at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gorgeous up here.
Yep. Robert, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
Folks, that's Robert Naiman with Alameda County Protectors, a good organization, a broad-based organization of people doing good things to try to protect their land, their water, their livelihoods from a proposal that has so many question marks next to it that I'm not sure why it's gotten as far as it has, but well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. When there is money to be made, there is always somebody willing to make it, and sometimes at the expense of other people who are adversely impacted. All right, later in the program, we're going to talk about education. We're kicking off a new conversation here called a different beat on education. It's going to take me a couple shows, Maddie, to get the name down. I tell you, we went through so many name possibilities trying to figure out what to call this thing, but a different beat on education. Again, reminiscent of Henry David Thoreau's call to march to the beat of a different drummer. You know, there are plenty of folks in education who care deeply about their kids and about their community that are finding innovative ways to provide the instruction that goes into producing healthy, happy, well-educated and well-rounded adults. So we'll talk with Sherry Hardina about that. She's going to join us along with Mary Jean Annexstad. Sherry is a parent at Coles Elementary School, Coles Montessori School in Des Moines. And Mary Jean helped get that school started and is an instructor. Before we go to that segment, though, I got to, the situation with Edward Snowden. Again, this is the guy who exposed the surveillance tactics that involve the U.S. government requiring Verizon by court order and this is not. You know, we like to think of our courts as public forums. I know that in many cases, in some trials, the cameras are not allowed into courtrooms. And that's actually kind of cool in a way because it gives starving artists some opportunities to make a living. They go in there and they sketch the courtroom and you get to see that in the paper and you think, okay, not what I expected, but I like it. So, there's that. But for the most part, courts tend to be open forums. But we have this secret court, this secret FISA court. This is based on legislation passed a few years back, relevant to the Patriot Act. And it is designed to operate. It is required to operate in secret. And so what comes out of there, we don't know anything about. And one thing that comes out of there is a requirement, an order to Verizon to release phone records of all of its customers to the National Security Agency. Along with that, the NSA is also gathering phenomenal amounts of data from our internet use. You know, I understand the argument. Well, we got to prevent acts of terrorism, but a lot of people are challenging this, and again. As with the previous issue we discussed, frac sand mining, this is an issue that tends to pull people from across the political spectrum. Not quite in the same numbers because we have polling. Polling shows that most Americans, and I was actually a little surprised at this, most Americans favor criminal prosecution against Edward Snowden. I personally admire what the guy has done because he has put his life, reputation, and everything. Everything normal in his life is gone. For all I know, his girlfriend may be gone as well. I know his family's concerned about him. She's concerned about him. Nobody quite knows where he is, which for him is probably a smart call. This guy, I can't imagine him doing it just because he wanted to make a name for himself. There's all sorts of ways to get in the paper if you really want to just be a showboat. But this is a life commitment. I mean, he has changed his life in a way that most of us would not be comfortable doing that. So that's a separate issue, though, to the question of whether or not he deserves to be prosecuted, whether he broke the law. And again, you can always break the law and in your own conscience be responding to a higher calling. And I think that's what he feels he did. But 54% of Americans polled in this recent poll, this is a poll taken by USA Today and Pew Research, it finds that 54% want this guy prosecuted. Well, again, the U.S. government is really adept at finding people it doesn't like. I'd say there's a really good chance they're going to catch this guy, but he's who knows what'll happen? I mean, you can't just who knows? I really don't know what will happen. It'll be interesting if he really is in Hong Kong. That's gonna be a harder place to politically, maybe it's an easier place to accomplish something, just strategically, but politically, that's a harder place to come in and just snatch somebody. Again, he defended his Snowden just yesterday, in fact, defended his disclosure of these top secret U.S. spying documents in an online chat with The Guardian. The Guardian is the English newspaper that, along with the Washington Post, released this story last week. And he says, Snowden says, quote, "The U.S. government is not going to be able to cover this up by jailing or murdering me." I mean, he genuinely feels jail time or being killed. He goes on to say that, quote, "Immediately and predictably, they destroyed any possibility of a fair trial at home by labeling him a, quote, traitor and indicating that, and then Snowden indicated, since I've already been basically called a traitor, and if I get back to the U.S., I'm going to be prosecuted and probably jailed, there's no way I'm going to return home voluntarily." Again, can't blame him. Congressional leaders have called Snowden a traitor for revealing once secret surveillance programs. Now, congressional leaders have also agreed that there are major concerns here. I mean, Senator Harkin is calling for I can't remember the word he used, not a study commission, but some kind of an analysis of what happened, what exactly is going on. But if the Obama administration insists on being secretive about this, it's hard to have a conversation if they aren't willing to come forward and talk more about it. And I understand. Well, they'll say, "Well, we can't have this. We can't have a conversation about secretive practices that help protect this country." But is that really what's happening? Vice President Dick Cheney. I always love it when Dick Cheney gets involved. Just make sure if he gets involved and he's got a shotgun in his hand that you're staying a little bit out of the way. Dick Cheney, again, called the guy a traitor. That those allegations were made in an interview on Fox News this week. Snowden, this is a little bit funny. Snowden says, quote, "Being called a traitor by Dick Cheney is the highest honor you can give an American." Well, nice to see he has a sense of humor. Snowden goes on to say about Cheney, "This is a man who gave us the warrantless wiretapping scheme as a kind of atrocity warm-up on the way to deceitfully engineering a conflict that has killed over 4,400 and maimed nearly 32,000 Americans, as well as leaving over 100,000 Iraqis dead." Hey, good point. Cheney and others knew that the premise for invading Iraq was false, was a blatant lie. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein, for all his warts, and they are multiple, was not involved in 9/11. This was all known. This was all fabricated. Again, not the first time that a lie has led to a war, Bay of Pigs, or near war in that case. But the bottom line is, who is the traitor? This guy for exposing the truth, or Cheney for lying through his teeth, leading to a war that killed 100,000 Iraqis, 4,500 Americans, and seriously maiming another 32,000 Americans. Yeah, good point. So, I don't know where this goes. I don't know what the Obama administration and federal authorities are willing to do to bring this guy home and to try him. I mean, all he has to do is look at the fate of Bradley Manning to think, well, I think I'll stay here in Hong Kong. And again, I do not deny that there is a concern about terrorism. There's no doubt. But shouldn't we begin to do what Ron Paul suggested? I mean, Ron Paul said, it was almost heresy what he said. Why do they hate us? Why are they engaging in these acts of terrorism against our country? We should start having that conversation. We should start asking that question and taking appropriate steps to begin to address, the reasons, the underlying causes of this strong anti-American sentiment that does not seem to be subsiding at all. Again, I'm not in any way, shape, or form justifying some, the actions that are taken against our country, against Americans here and abroad sometimes, and more emphatically, against a lot of other innocent people. I mean, the truth is, acts of terror kill and maim a lot more people across the globe who aren't Americans than who are. And we should be concerned about that. We should be critical of that. You know, I'm Irish American to the core. Ireland is my second home. I have never, ever not been a strong critic of the IRA. I mean, again, the whole thing has morphed now into a much different animal. It's much more political. That's good. I'm cool with that. But when the IRA was out committing acts of terror, they deserved to be called what they were, terrorists. Just as the Ulster Freedom Fighters were, terrorists. You know, terror is never to be tolerated, but you've got to ask, you know, is what we're doing to try to fight this problem working? Are we just ignoring the real problem, the underlying causes? And I think we are. And I think if we begin to address those and look at how some of our foreign policy, as Snowden points out, you know, I can understand why so many people across the world would be so upset at America given some of the things we have done in other countries. So maybe we need to have that conversation and then ask if these surveillance programs, this denial, this taking away of our liberties, our freedom, this spying on the American people, then we can start to ask, really, is that necessary if we begin to enact a more proactive engagement with people who are committing these acts? Anyway, yeah, you'll never satisfy everybody, but I think that's a conversation we ought to be having. And I thank Ron Paul for kicking that one off. Okay, I want to take a second to remind you, we're going to take a short break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about education. A new program, folks, a different beat on education. Sherry Hardina is joining us. Also, Mary Jean Annexstad. I'll get that name right. They're both associated with Coles Montessori School here in Des Moines. And we're going to talk regularly every week at 12:30. We're having a conversation about the different things happening in education that are a little bit outside the mainstream, a little bit of a different beat, if you will. So stay tuned for that conversation shortly. I want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Great March for Climate Action for sponsoring the Fallon Forum. Also want to thank my anchor business supporter, Gateway Market. And please, folks, if you believe in what we're doing on this program, support businesses like Gateway Market. They're a great local grocery store. They don't send their money to Austin, Texas, or some other corporate headquarters out of state. They keep it here in Iowa. Also, I want to thank Tinker Heating and Cooling and encourage you to think about Tinker when you've got an AC or furnace issue. Some of my restaurant supporters as well. Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut. Great place. 90% of the food they serve comes from Iowa farms. And looking ahead, don't forget about the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit coming up in November. Speaking of events, right now, starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, fantastic performance, Shakespeare on the Lawn at the Salisbury House. This is a performance put on by the Repertory Theater of Iowa. Tickets are $25, and it's well worth attending. Also, I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering, one of my other business supporters in the Beaverdale neighborhood. And if you're in Newton, or if you're getting married, no matter whether you live in Newton or Des Moines, Diana's Wedding Cakes. Check out Diana's Wedding Cakes. They are fantastic. A quick reminder as well about S&P Piano. If you've got a piano to move, give S&P a shout. And again, if you're in Ames, or Des Moines for that matter, Fighting Burrito. Fighting Burrito is not just located in Ames anymore. It's also in Des Moines at 13th and Locust. Custom-made burritos at a very affordable price. And also Ames, one of my other Ames business supporters, Story County Veterinary Clinic. And again, my favorite cafe in Des Moines, Ritual Cafe at 13th and Locust. I'll be back in just a few minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to the Fallon Forum to a new segment here, not just for today's show. This is a new segment that we will be having every week on this conversation. It's called A Different Beat in Education, and I love Henry David Thoreau. It's a reference to his marching to the beat of a different drummer. And for a long time, there have been plenty of people who have been marching to a different beat when it comes to education, and they aren't as well known as they should be. So the attempt here is to bring more recognition and awareness to what folks are doing in alternatives to standard practice in education. And this is in no way, shape, or form to denigrate the value of our public school system. I've been a longtime supporter of public education, and I do want to have people from our public school system join for this conversation as well, from all over the state, certainly from Ames, from Northeast Iowa. There are some great things happening in those communities as well. And also here in Des Moines, we have a fantastic new superintendent of schools here, Tom Ahart. I'd like to get him on the program to talk about that as well. And actually, the kickoff conversation for this new segment is about something happening in the Des Moines School District. It's about Coles Montessori School. And I will admit, with a little bit of embarrassment, that I've never been to Coles, but I've heard lots of good things about it, including from a parent that I know, Sherry Herdina. Welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here.
Yeah, and we're going to talk with both Sherry and with Mary Jean Annexted.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
And you're one of the founders of the program.
Well, I got it going, yes.
We call that founding.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, and you're an instructor.
I am an instructor. I'm a trainer, teacher trainer, and I do a little consulting.
Okay, and so when did the Coles Montessori School first kick off?
Our first year was in 1993. I moved here from Chicago area, and I had been involved in Montessori in Chicago, and I wanted to do something in Montessori.
This is 20 years ago.
This is 20 years. We are going to start our 20th year, yes.
Usually, oftentimes innovations like this start and then the administration and the school board get bored and they shut them down. I saw that happen with Edmonds where my kids went to school. I've seen it happen with other innovations. So this one appears to have some legs. It's lasting a long time.
It does. And Maria Montessori's had schools for 100 years.
Maria Montessori is the founder?
Maria Montessori is the founder. Her philosophy, she did not really found schools, but her philosophy, she was the first doctor in Italy. So she approached education not through an educator's eyes, but through the eyes of a scientist and a mathematician.
How long ago was that?
That was in the late 1800s.
Oh gosh, so we're talking over 100 years.
Yes, definitely.
And the philosophy is still relevant, apparently.
Yes, it is.
And what are the core principles of the Montessori
The
philosophy?
core principles are that the children are motivated to learn. They love learning, and there is a joy in their hearts.
So is it that naturally kids want to learn?
They want to learn, and if you give them an environment in which to do that, they'll take off.
And you're a Coles parent.
Yes.
So you there was something about the Coles program that inspired you to enroll your kids in the program.
Yes. I think what inspired me was how I didn't know a lot about it when I first signed up the kids, but as I learned more and more about it, my kids are 14 and 16 right now, and they both started at Coles when they were at preschool. And one of the things I think is extremely beneficial is that internal motivation. They don't do things because they can get a gold star or get money for good grades or get a grade. They do it for learning.
The love of learning.
The love of learning.
And that seems like the whole premise of the philosophy is that kids want to learn. Kids are curious, excited, interested in learning. And again, I think a lot of what happens in school is there's the presumption that kids don't want to be here. And speaking from experience, I didn't want to be there. And again, I didn't go to public school. I went to Catholic school growing up. I absolutely didn't want to be there. It had something to do with my knuckles being battered on a regular basis, but there are plenty of other reasons why it did not appeal to me. So, you apparently have grasped how important it is to understand that kids want to learn.
Yes.
And so again, Montessori here at Coles covers how many grades?
Preschool, 3-year-olds through 8th grade.
So quite a span.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And were your kids enrolled there for that whole
Yep.
period?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not weirdos. They're good kids.
They're very good kids. They are.
And they're probably listening to this show. So they know. So anyway, where are they now? Are they still in school?
Yes. One of them is going to be a freshman at Roosevelt, and another one is going to be a junior at Roosevelt next year. I think some of the comments I've heard back from the teachers at Roosevelt who have had my oldest in class was how she and some others from Coles are leaders. They're likely to take things on and take initiative. The the English teacher had said that, my daughter was a walking thesaurus because they were taught Greek and Latin word roots, and that was an exciting part of their middle school experience.
Nice. Huh. And so, again, the program itself goes back to over 100 years. I did not realize it had been around that long. And in Des Moines, 20 years.
20 years.
And so what was it like getting it started? Was there a lot of resistance?
I think I moved here at the right time, and I think Des Moines Public School was open to have an alternative for the parents to choose. When I approached the public school, someone introduced me to people downtown, and I told them about Montessori. I explained that we really need to get started with 3s and 4s because that's where it starts.
3 and 4-year-olds.
3 and 4-year-olds. And we could build from there if the parents accept that. And that's what happened. They needed to find a principal who would have us in their building, which we did.
The building was already there.
Yes, it was at, we started at Hillis, Montessori, Hillis, it's on Hickman. We were there 3 years. So the first year we had 3 and 4-year-olds, half a day, 24. The second year, the parents loved it. They wanted to continue with kindergarten. The next year, they loved it, wanted to continue with 1st and 2nd grade. So here we had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds all in one classroom.
Wow.
And then Des Moines Public Schools said, we need to look for a new place for you. And we've been growing ever since.
Yeah. And I imagine that it's fairly competitive. I know when my kids went to Edmonds was the Fine Arts Academy. Maybe you had even considered Edmonds. I don't know. No. Well, Edmonds is really no. Edmonds was a great school, and when it was really well supported by the administration, it was a magnet. I mean, it was called a magnet school, and people wanted in there. I mean, there was a waiting list. I imagine it's similar with Coles, that it's hard to get in there.
Well, we do have a huge waiting list, but Maria, when she started her first Casa dei Bambini, it was for underprivileged children. So it's not for any particular sector of children. It's for everyone. Any child can learn well in Montessori. Depends on their personality, how far they take it.
Right.
But we do have a huge waiting list. And at the moment, we're just taking 3-year-olds because we cannot filter in any older children.
So with a huge waiting list, why not expand the program? What would keep the school district from broadening the opportunities?
That would be wonderful. We've talked to Des Moines Public Schools on several occasions, encouraging them to do that. Timing might not have been right, but we're going to continue to do that because it's a very well-kept secret, but we are getting the word out, and many parents would love to send their children here. I think our waiting list is about 300 right now.
Right.
And
so
there's no room.
What's it like, Sherry? By the way, folks, if you want to call and join this conversation, we always welcome questions, comments, criticism. You can say how much you like Sherry's Montessori shirt, maybe even figure out what to order one of those. No, the number to call is 244-0077, or toll free, it's 855-244-0077. If you are listening on KHOI 89.1 in Ames, or on KPVL up in Northeast Iowa, this is a rebroadcast. If you want to hear the program live, every Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 on the Fallon Forum website, that's fallonforum.com. Also, you can live stream the show on the Webcast One Live's website as well. But I'm trying to get a sense of what the classroom is like. How is a classroom in a Montessori school different than your standard public education, your standard public school?
It's not as structured in some ways, but in other ways it's more structured. It's not where people come in, they sit at their desk, the teacher says, okay, everybody, let's get out your math books. And then they all work on math together on the same lesson.
So instead, they're running around the classroom throwing erasers at each other?
No, they aren't.
Okay.
They have a procedure which they go through. There's a lot of shelves that are easy access to, whatever size the student is. And they
Shelves. Okay.
Yes, like a shelf.
In terms of the height, they can go there
right,
themselves. Okay,
and they
gotcha.
can pull out a tray with a work in it, and the teacher will show them how to do that work if they've never done it before. They go through it. It's self-correcting, and then when they're done, they clean it up and then put it
Self-correcting. Give me an example of. I'm trying to get a visual on this.
I'll defer to Mary Jean to explain that one.
One of the most important things about Montessori is the prepared environment. And as Sherry was saying, the room has shelves all over it. And the children choose the work. When Maria Montessori began her journey through the philosophy, she began with concrete materials and manipulatives. And throughout,
what do you mean by manipulatives?
A manipulative, you can take a piece of paper and fold it. You can use your hands.
Okay.
So the more senses that you use when you are trying to learn something, the better you're going to internalize that. Thus, you have as many manipulatives as you can, starting with preschool all the way up through 8th grade. Many of the manipulatives that we have in preschool that a 3- and 4-year-old will use, they would use again in elementary, but they'll use it in a different way, in a more abstract way.
Okay. So really, there's no, maybe I'm wrong, but I almost sense that there's no lesson plan. The teacher doesn't go home at night and figure out what the plan's going to be for the week. The students direct the plan.
Yes. Many times my lesson plans will be put together after the day.
I'm surprised you didn't get more opposition back in 1993, because that sounds like, we are very structured in how we do things in the society, and education is no exception. And I think there are some people that would say that just would lead to chaos, but that's not the case.
It's not. If your environment is prepared, and that's the most important thing, teachers spend a lot of time preparing the environment. And if it's prepared with students in mind, you can think of a student and say, I think they might really want to work on this particular project. You would get things together and put it in the classroom for them. And you would give a lesson, a presentation.
Okay, so each there's a lot of shelves in the school classroom.
We have basically different areas of the classroom. There's a math area.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Which is wonderful. It's my favorite area.
Well, that would have been my least favorite area had I been a student.
Kindergartners are doing four-digit addition.
You would have liked it?
Yep, you would have loved it. It's wonderful. We have a language area, a sensorial area, which is where Maria started.
What does that mean, sensorial?
Sensorial deals with all the senses. Your sense of touch, your sense of sight, hearing.
Smell?
Smell. Mm-hmm. So, and we have exercises in the classroom that address each one of those. And then we have practical life, which is a lot of small motor. And many children will go home after 2 weeks and they'll get out a bucket and a sponge and they'll start cleaning the table off at home.
Oh, I can see why. I can see why the program is popular with parents. Yeah, okay.
They learn life skills.
Yeah,
and they start when they're 3.
I want to say that was surprising to me when I found out about that. For instance, when you are cleaning the table, they teach you to clean the table by starting in the top left-hand corner, working across, and then over and over. So what that does is it prepares you for reading. So like some of the, what you might call puzzles, have little knobs that you hold a particular way with 3 fingers. That gets your muscles ready for writing.
Interesting. That's clever, and it works apparently. All right. So now you said we were looking at ages 3 through 8. What's that? 12?
14.
14.
Okay, yeah. That's over 11 years of an age span. Are they all in the same classroom?
There are, in the pre-primary, there's 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. The next level is lower elementary, 1st through 3rd grade.
Okay.
Then upper elementary, 4th through 6th, and then our middle school, 7th and 8th.
So, are these all at that one building, all the Coles?
Yes.
Okay. So you basically have 4 classrooms for a span of 11 years.
Yes.
Now that goes against the grain as well, the idea that you have to separate each grade level from the other.
It's a wonderful concept to have a multi-age classroom because the younger children look up to the older children.
The older children pick on the younger ones?
The older children help the younger children.
Okay, good. You don't have that problem where they're picking on them?
No.
Good.
No.
Good.
It really is marvelous. You need to come and see us.
Well, I've been to many of the buildings in the Des Moines School District. I've not been to Kohl's.
Yeah, one thing with
that has to change. Absolutely.
Multi-level thing. One thing that I think is really important is the service work that the middle school does. The 7th and 8th graders will help the younger students with recess, with lunch, and there is a fondness both ways for the younger and the older students to work together that way.
Well, I can see that. I mean, the one-room schoolroom, one-room classroom, that worked well for a long time. And I can see why. And I've seen kids interact. Older kids like to help younger kids. Yeah. Sure, it makes them feel like they have a place and a more important role to play. So, all right. So, how many students are enrolled there currently?
I think we have almost 400 for next year. 400.
Wow. Okay.
And this will be the first year that we'll have the entire building.
All right.
When we first moved into Kohl's, there were probably 10 different programs there.
Wasn't there some administrative services going
there
on there as well?
There was administrative, there was computer, there was adult education, early childhood special ed, just a lot of different programs, focus program. So now we have the whole building for next year.
That's great. Now, do you happen to know whether or not there are other Montessori schools in school districts across the state?
There are not public. We are the only public Montessori school.
Really? Wow. That says something about the Des Moines School District to be willing to not only initiate that, but to continue it for 20 years and now expand it. That's good.
It is, and it's very nice that we're able to keep that integrity of Montessori and the philosophy of Montessori intact while we're teaching, because it is quite different from traditional, and the children are learning differently.
Yeah, maybe traditional is the wrong word, maybe conventional.
Conventional.
Yeah. And so there are other Montessori schools around the state, but they are private.
They are private, yes.
So you would have to pay to go to them. What does that cost?
Anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000 a year.
Per year?
Per student.
Per student?
Per student.
Wow. Well, we're fortunate in Des Moines in that case. I'd not realized it was the only Montessori school in the state.
The only public
that's public,
one. It is there are 3 private Montessoris in Des Moines.
Okay.
And they go, I believe, just through kindergarten.
And why would somebody opt for that and the cost if they can, maybe because they can't get into the
Well, they were all started before Des Moines Public started.
Okay.
Kohl's.
All right.
So they were going, and when I came from Chicago, I went to visit, and I thought I would rather talk to the administration downtown to see if we could get a public school one going, because what a great gift to parents.
Yeah. Well,
and to the children.
Yeah. So, and you have something unique at Kohl's as well called peace education.
Yes. Each classroom has a peace table or peace shelves, and that's where the children solve their problems. Conflict management happens there. So you might have a 4 and a 5-year-old in my classroom that are having difficulty. Maybe they both want to choose the same work.
Yeah.
And let's go over to the peace corner. And we have a peace rose. And the person who's holding that peace rose is the one that's able to talk. Well, I really want to do that work. And they hand the rose to somebody else. And you talk them through how to solve a problem.
Okay.
And as children get older, they go to the peace corner themselves if they're having an argument to solve their own problem. They know that that's where it's a safe, peaceful place for them to go.
So when peace education, it's not about studying international conflict or war versus peace. It's more about conflict resolution, really.
Yes,
how
it
you
is.
can use that in your own life, your own, in this case, in the classroom.
Right, and then we have a shelf that has a lot of peaceful activities for the children to do just by themselves. If they feel that there's too much going on in the classroom, they want to get into a quiet, peaceful place, they can go into that corner and do some of the work that's on there.
That might be a crowded place.
Only one person at a time. That's the rule.
Oh, really?
Unless there are 2 children who are solving a conflict.
One more question. What about? What about the situation where you might have a kid that is totally disinterested in learning how to read, or right, and they're going to choose anything but that. What happens? I mean, or am I making that scenario up? Is that not even? You never have that problem?
No, we do, but some children, that's another great thing about Montessori. We get the children at the developmental level. When they're ready and when you see an interest pop, it might be when they're 3, it might be when they're 4, you're going to grab them at that point and start working with them, giving them a presentation. Right. And we start with concrete objects. So, for instance, microphone starts with the sound of we might have a microphone there for them. Okay. So they're learning that association between the letter and the object. A lot of concrete things that they can go through.
So do students who go through the Montessori school, how do they stack up? I mean, there's all this obsession with testing. I've never been a fan of testing. And I just saw you roll your eyes, so that's good. Yeah, but I imagine, I mean, your kids probably had to, everybody's got to do these tests. Mm-hmm. And I imagine your kids did as well. How did they fare?
I think Montessori does prepare them because they know the information. It's not, they're doing it to try to get the biggest grade. They do have, in 7th grade, they might have like a spelling test, or, other grades might have that too, kind of assessment. So they are kind of prepared for that idea. They do have the IWA test of basic skills.
Right.
But that is a little bit of a learning curve, to go through some practice on how to take a test. But I find that once, my daughter moved into high school, and knowing how important grades are for a lot of different reasons, such as college, well put. That it does change how she prioritizes things. She will juggle things differently. So I am very thankful, though, for having to be in an environment where it's cool to be a nerd. It's good to know, without having the same amount of pressures and influences that you traditionally see in a peer group. And I think that makes them able to strike out on their own even stronger in high school.
And they're doing well at Roosevelt? There's been no problem transitioning?
No, just small things. I mean, one thing that they've, like at first, the first 8th graders that went to Roosevelt, like they didn't know how to open up a locker. Little things like that. Or they might get frustrated because after 90 minutes, the class is changing. They were still interested in what they were working on. So there are things that are different, but they, are learned and they get on and they're easier. And I think they're just more prepared to deal with those types of things after having the background.
That's hilarious that they couldn't understand the locker system. That's great. Yeah. Well, what do you see the future for this in Des Moines?
I hope I see another Montessori school.
A second one.
A second one, I think, would be wonderful, public. I think it will just keep continuing to grow. Our school, we really are at our max. We've got
sounds like it,
we've got 6 classrooms of the first 2 levels, and four classrooms of the 3rd level, and 2 classrooms of the middle school. We have no more room. I mean, we are maxed out, even with the new expansion for next year.
So now I'm actually surprised that there haven't been more Montessori schools haven't found their way into school districts around the state. I mean, we've got over 300 school districts. You'd think at least one of them would be interested in doing something similar, or maybe it's been tried and they didn't succeed.
I think there's a lot of misconception about Montessori, because the children are free to choose their own work. They can walk around the classroom and look at a math project and go, I like to work on that. They're free to do what they want, and people think, oh, it's mad chaos in that room.
Right.
But people, the first time my husband walked into a Montessori classroom, his mouth hung open. I mean, he couldn't believe the children didn't even look at him. They just kept right on with their work, and were very, very busy. They're all engaged because they're doing things they want to do.
Well, I think the premise makes a lot of sense. Kids are naturally inclined to want to learn. Mm-hmm. It's not something you have to force feed them.
No. So
anyway, it's a great introduction. We're going to be having more of these conversations, folks, every Tuesday at 12:30. A different beat on education. And I really want to thank Sherry Herdina and Mary Jean Enigstad for joining us here today on the program, and thank you for listening. There's a podcast of the show if you want to use it for any reason. That will be up later today, and again, the show will be rebroadcast on KHOI 89.1 FM in Ames and also KPVL out of Postville in northeast Iowa. So thank you. And again, every day, noon to 1, you can catch the Fallon Forum live on the Fallon Forum website, fallonforum.com. I want to thank the $1 Million Marathon for also sponsoring this program. Max Wellman Music, the Max Wellman Trio, performing all over the state. Also want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering, Community CPA and Associates, and my anchor sponsor, Gateway Market and Cafe at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood of Des Moines. Make them your local grocery store and also a great place for breakfast, lunch, or supper, and a catering service as well. I want to thank my producer, Maddie Arrington. I want to thank Webcast One Live for this great little studio we have here in the Des Moines Skywalk. I'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.